Okay, so good evening, class. So we are now with your module 4, which is entitled as proteins. Okay, so this is our last module, which is one of the coverage in your midterm examination under the lecture. So these are the objectives of your module 4. So by the end of this module, the students will be able to define protein. Second is to identify structures of protein. Number three is to discuss the different types of protein, then discuss the definition of enzymes and its classes. Number five, explain the factors that influence enzymatic activity. And number six, determine the factors that affect enzymatic activity. So these are the foods that we are eating, which are made up of proteins. Okay, so these are even your milk. There is a presence of protein here. Your beef, your chicken. So that is came from the meat. Okay, your milk. The source for this is came from meat also, which are considered as rich in protein. Okay, so aside from that, we also have here the legumes and then the egg. So there is a part of your egg which is made up of protein. Okay, so here in your chat, with your yogurt, if you uh, go back with your previous lesson, it is not doesn't mean that if you eat this food, these are only made up of proteins. Okay, so your yogurt is made up also with their lactose with a combination of milk, which is under your carbohydrates. So which means that your the food that you have eaten, it is not only about protein. Okay, so there are different components which are aside from your protein. So your protein is a main building block of the human body. Okay, so these are the made up of smaller molecules which are known as your amino acids. So the monomer of your protein is amino acid. So when you say monomer class, this is the smallest particle. Diba? With your previous lesson during your high school, it says if your teacher asks you about the monomer or the smallest particle of your protein, you can answer it as amino acids. So these amino acids, so they are linked together like a bit. So like for example, here in the examples, okay. So these are your amino acids. So these are made of beads and form along protein chains. So this is a polypeptide chain. Okay, so if you notice, so it is looks like a beads. Okay, your proteins, these are organic compounds. So if you remember with our previous lesson, when you say organic compounds, these are made up of carbon. So there's are the four mainly components of your amino acids. So these are your carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and then the other one, which is what you call the nitrogen. So here, so this is the structure of your protein. So these are made of hydrogen, nitrogen, carbon, and then oxygen. So these are your protein is a building block of uh, this building blocks of your protein. So what are the functions of your protein? Why is it necessarily for me to at the end of your protein, for the introduction of protein, is your enzyme? Why? Because one of the functions of your protein is uh, for the producing of these enzymes or the digestive enzymes, which so when you say enzymes, it is speed up or it is known as the catalyst. Okay, so aside from that, it is also for the support of your antibodies, and we all knew that when you say antibodies, this is the one that increases our immunity or fight against infection. Another one here is that your protein is the one that support the muscle contraction during our movement. So when we are doing exercises, okay, so through the protein, uh, uh, because your protein is converted into muscle, it is the one that support a muscle contraction. So here it is the support the regulation and expression of your DNA and your RNA. Okay, and this one is to provide the support the bodies. It is about the muscles, and then aside from your enzymes, it is also uh, it is the one that coordinate to in producing your hormones, which is help to coordinate for the bodily function. So which means that it is in order to maintain the homeostasis of our body, we need protein. We need amino acids. So when we are eating proteins, it helps us to burn calories. So we all knew that the excess glucose inside our body, it is converted into calories or fats. Okay, so when we are eating proteins, this protein foods, it is helps to burn our our calories intake, and it reduces our appetite. Why? Because our protein, it lessen the appetite because it takes time. Okay, it takes time to digest inside our body. If we compare to our carbohydrates and our lipids, it takes 6 hours in order to digest. So parang feeling natin we are full. Okay, so para tayong busog. That is the reason why. Okay, so if we eat protein, so like for example, um, at night, okay, so we feel full. Okay, so it lessened for us. So there is a tendency for us to eat a midnight snacks because our stomach is full. We feel full. Okay, so these are the component structure of your protein. So these are made of amine. So that is the NH. There are two nitrogen here and two hydrogen atoms, and then the alpha carbon, which is, and then your variable R group. So there is a presence of R here, and then your carboxylic acid, which is the double bonds here. Okay, it is attached to an oxygen. So these are the 20 amino acids of your protein. So these are made of polar and then the non-polar. We all knew that when you say non-polar, they are insoluble in water, and when you say polar molecules, they are soluble in water. So they have also a positively charged and your negatively charged. So there are two types of your amino acids or under the protein. So these are your essential amino acid, which is your amino acid is the monomer of your protein, and then the non-essential amino acids. So your essential amino acids came from the food that you eat. So this one. Okay, so these are the nine. So these are the histidine, the iso, so and so. All of this, they have their own functions inside our body. So they are came from the food that you eat. Okay, so you have to read your module for that, for the functions. And then your non-essential amino acid, which is found inside our body, not from the food that we eat. Okay, so essential amino acids cannot be made by the body. It comes from the food that we eat. Okay, so it came from the food. So, for example, the legumes, the meat, okay, the eggs. So they are under the essential amino acids. So these essential amino acids, okay, as I have said, they are came from the animal products. These are, aside from that, they are also some plant foods, which are considered as essential amino acids. So this, like for example, the tofu. So there is someone asked me about this tofu, and this tofu, it is not under the carbohydrates, but it is about the protein. So like for example, if you are fond of eating tofu, so this can cause sometimes it is to arthritis. So the excess protein inside our body, which is not absorbed and converted into uric acid. So the non-essential amino acids, so these are synthesized by our body. So um, like for example, during healing or during the metabolism or during the emergency cases, these non-essential amino acids are they are called as conditionally essential. So which means if it is they are necessarily, so they are produced by our body in order to neutralize or to maintain the homeostasis. Okay, so like for example here in the during the healing process, okay, so if there is a presence of wound, our body is produce a non-essential amino acid in order to heal, okay, to speed up the healing process of our wounds. Okay, So these protein are classified according to shape into two. So these are your fibrous proteins, and then the other one, which is what you call the globular proteins. So when you say fibrous proteins class, these are made of parallel. So these are polypeptide because this is made from protein. It is made of polypeptide chains. So the polypeptide chains made from fibrous proteins are parallel. Okay, while your globular proteins are spherical. So look at this. This one is parallel, okay, and then the other one is globular. Okay, so there are four types of your protein. So if you notice, this fibrous and their globular are present in your types of your protein. So the first one here is what you call the primary structure. So this is linear. Okay, so this one, and then your secondary structure is that it is made of alpha helix. So this one para siyang paikot-ikot. And then the beta pleated sheet. Okay, so it is produced from a polypeptide chains. And then the third one here is what you call the tertiary structure, which is made from your primary and then your secondary structure. So with your module, I have noticed that I have only mentioned about the secondary. So the tertiary came from three, which means that it is with alpha helix and beta helix, and then the primary structure. So which means that it is made of linear. Okay, this one, and there is an alpha helix here. This one, and then the beta pleated, so it's here. So your tertiary structure is made up of your primary and your secondary structures. How about when you say quaternary structures, aside from tertiary, it is more complicated if you notice compared to the other structures of your protein. So that is what quaternary structure. How about when you say enzymes? So your enzymes class, it is the one that regulate the chemical reactions. It is a catalyst or speed up catabolic activity. So the metabolism, mabilis ang metabolism ng ating food na kinakain through the presence of that enzymes. As I have mentioned, your salivary amylase, if you eat carbohydrates, so your salivary amylase speed up, or it is a catalyst that speed up para these polysaccharides are digested into simple sugars. So your enzyme is here. So there is a presence. So here, through the presence of your enzyme from your maltose, which is your maltose is a combination of your two glucose. So this is a disaccharides. So through the presence of this enzyme, it speed up, or it's split into two. Okay, so through hydrolysis process, it is divided into two monomers, which are the two glucose, one of the monosaccharides in your carbohydrates. So this is the function of your enzymes. It says here that the active site of the enzyme changes its shape. It is no longer a substrate, so your enzyme are not functionally well, because the enzyme is the nature. So let us see next week, okay, what so that we don't have an activity left in your midterms. I have something to do next week for your laboratory, so you can print the lab sheet for this, and we will observe. Okay, we will observe your activity, the last laboratory activity under the midterm next week. Okay, so you have to be ready for this laboratory. Okay, so your enzymes also present in your protein synthesis, if you remember. So through the RNAs, through the presence of your RNA polymerase. Okay, so this the so it is it speed up, okay, the catalytic activity of your RNA, and it goes out of the nucleus in order to synthesize protein. So there are many inherited diseases like your albinism. So alam naman natin yung albinism, para yung iba yung kanilang kulay. And then the phenylketonuria, which is they are inability to metabolize your phenylalanine. So your phenylalanine is found here in your essential amino acids. So look at this. Okay, so phenylalanine is here, and they're your essential amino acids. So let us go back here with these two disorders, which are particularly present in the enzymatic activity. So the biochemical defect responsible for oculocutation in your albinism, okay, this is your tyrosinase. So as I have mentioned before, if there is an ASE at the end, this is an enzyme which is um, uh, there is a defect, okay, for there is a deficiency of your enzyme under the tyrosinase, and um the enzyme which is responsible to convert tyrosine to dopa, which is the formation of your melanin. So the skin color is, the melanin is responsible for skin pigmentation. So if you notice with the mga albinians, okay, so yung kulay nilang may problema. How about when you say the digestive process of your protein? So same with your carbohydrates. So if we take food into our mouth, and then it produces an amylase, the salivary amylase. But aside from your salivary amylase, which is it needs it needs uh an enzyme which is present in your stomach. So inside your stomach, there is a presence of your hydrochloric acid in order to break down food. So there is a presence of your pepsin. So if you notice your pepsin, it is not at the end with ASE, but there is, this is one of the enzymes in order to speed up the catalytic activity of your protein. So it is not easily to digest kasi ang protein natin. So denaturation, so there is also a protease, which is an enzyme also responsible for uh, to digest your protein inside our body. So this one, if this protease or the protein is converted into a monomer, which is the smallest particle of your protein, which is an amino acid, it is distributed into the bloodstream. So these are the following enzymes to help digest. So these are your tyrosine, your chymotrypsin, and then your carboxypeptidase. So these are the enzymes which are found inside our digestive organs. So like for example, here your pepsin is found in your stomach, which is the one that helps to break down food, and then your trypsin is found in your pancreas, so on so these are the enzymes which are present. So these are the enzymes which are present inside our body. So this one, your protease, if you remembered with your cellular respiration, so through the presence of your kinase and your phosphate, so these are in order to produce more ATPs. Your ATP synthase also ends with ASA. So in order to increase protein absorption inside our body, it is choose to whole grains which are made of 9 essential amino acids. So this is came from the food that we eat. Okay, so in order to improve to protein, in order to increase the absorption of your protein. For those who are vegetarian, okay, so you can use, it is not about the fibers, which is under the the um, the complex carbohydrates, okay, but also you can take protein foods from the whole grains or the legumes. If you notice about the tofu, okay, so that is part of your food which are rich in these are considered as the nutritious foods which are under the protein rich foods. So how about the factors affect the enzymatic activity? So there are different factors that can denature, or your enzymatic activity is denatured. So hindi siya nagfa-function well because of some factors. So these are your pH, your temperature, and your substrate concentration. So that is the end of our module 4. So class, so I think since you cannot do with your, so kung pwede lang class some of the groupings, okay, some of the members of the group, so class, please ay merong isa or dalawang members of the group or tatlo na meron silang data. Okay, so yun ang gagamitin natin for the next week in your last laboratory. So this is we use a hard copy in order for us that before the midterm exam, all the activities in your the cover for the coverage of your midterm topics will finish, in lecture and in your laboratory. So that is the end of